everyone. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, you guys. We just launched our Caregivers and Government Contract Hub, and we're totally excited about it because we are going to be sharing information about government contracts and how you, as a caregiver or a small business or just someone who wants to start a new business, can learn about government contract and how government contracting can help you stabilize your business, grow your business, or just add extra income. Now, it's not a get rich or something that just happens overnight. It is a process, but I have to tell you that it was definitely something that helped stabilize our business in a time where we were not sure, which way we were going to be going. And so I always felt like every resource or information you can give someone can be a blessing and can be helpful for them. And especially, I know for caregivers because they give up a lot, and they're taking care of their loved ones. Now, you may not have time to do it. That's just something you would have to figure out on your schedule. But if you're in the evening time and you're done with your loved one and you just have some time to just kind of relax and then look through some try to learn about government contracting. It could be definitely a game changer for you. It is a lot of work. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
Welcome to our new launch here, the Caregiver in Government Hub here. And I was just sharing that, how government contract helped stabilize our business and help us in a time where we weren't sure where we're gonna, what we were gonna, what we were doing. We knew what we were doing,
Yeah.
but sometimes, as you know, in business, you pivot, you make changes, you restructure
Mhm.
all these things. And that's where we were in a restructuring phase. And government contract helped literally stabilize us. And so I just feel like it's something that we can definitely share with the community, share with people who wants to get into it, and all those things. So you had any words today, Diane? Thank you for joining.
I have tried to. It won't. Hey, can
Oh,
you
there,
hear me?
I can we hear you? I can hear you.
Okay, okay, good. No, I'm really excited about this because my business is, um, I'm in flux right now,
Mhm.
as you know, and I was looking for an opportunity
Uh-huh.
that may give me some momentum in my business. So I started, I think it's a week or 2 weeks ago, and I have to tell you, thank you for the book that you made. One of the things that I do for my caregivers is I feel like I have to spoon feed them step by steps. So for anything that they do to support them and not let them feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And that's what you've successfully done with the book that you put together for us to follow.
Oh,
So I appreciate that.
thank you, Diane, for that. You know what? You never know how things are going to turn out. And I have to tell you, I created that book back in I think 2023, 2024. It's been a while. It was just been sitting.
Uh-huh.
Let me say that. It was just sitting until I said, you know what? I'm going to do something with this book. I'm going to add things to it. And what I did is that we literally took information that we had learned along the way. Because when we first started, it was crazy. I was told like, hey, just go get these certifications and you will be good. And I'm thinking, and I did. And we went and we got these certifications and we were like, okay, now what do we do with these certifications now that we have them? And so that was a roller coaster ride. And then I remember back in actually 2022, I happened to be on Instagram and there was a gentleman named, oh my gosh, his name just like literally Desmond. Desmond was on, and I was like, I wasn't going because I'm not really, I'm always like skeptic. I'm a skeptic sometimes about
Yes,
I
me
see
too. Me
online,
too.
right? And
Hmm.
I said, you know what? Let me listen to him. And I did. And he had a lot of great information. So I really appreciated him. And I learned a lot from him. I had my profiles and things were set up, but they weren't set up properly. And so after I listened to him, I was able to go back and make sure that my profiles were set up properly and then just kind of start learning things. And it was so crazy. I'll tell you, one of the first times I had received after I got my profile set up properly, I received this email. And when I got it, I was still a skeptic because I'm like, is this real? Like, and it was a state agency asking for some product. And I was like, I don't know if this is real or not, and I'm not going to be clicking any links. And so I called because it was inside of the signature.
Uh-huh.
So I called to the state and I asked the people, and it was so funny because they was like, "Yeah, they do work here," and I was like, "Okay, that's all I needed to know." And then the rest is history. And so, and ever since then, we've been doing government contracts. We love it. We did a pause a little bit because we needed to in the process of the restructure of our business, we kind of went to made some changes and we were doing government contracts. We paused a little bit, but we're right back into it again. But in that process, we've been doing them for the last, what, 3 years. And it has really been awesome. And I just felt like it was something that we could share with people to add things on to their financing or maybe want to start a new career. I tell people it's never too late. I don't care how old you are, and so that's pretty much how we got started. And so
Well,
with the book, it's to
well,
help people, just to kind of tell people what it is. It's nothing fancy. It's not trying to be fluffy with all this stuff. I'm just telling it like it is. This is what we went through. This is what we did, and hopefully this can help you not make the mistakes we made.
I appreciate that. And I just want you to know I'm 73 years old. So I don't think that,
And you
and
look
I'm still,
good.
and I'm still looking for ways for things to do when I grow up. So,
Oh my
um,
gosh. Well, you sound good and you look good, Diane. And so hey, I'm in the 50 club, girl. So let me tell
yeah,
you, it's never too late to start over. And sometimes when you're going through a restructure or you have things going on in your life, you feel like you're starting all over again. And so that's
yeah,
why I said it's never too late to
yes,
start
I
something.
agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
You talk about the certifications. I
Huh?
it- am I going to need them in the future? Are they something that I should consider, or is that something I should look at later after I go through all of this?
I would say later, Diane, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Because you don't
Okay.
need a certification to bid on a contract to submit a bid at all. Um,
Great.
you need to have, of course, you want to make sure you have your cage, your UEI number, those type of things, which you've already, I think, completed already. So you
Yeah.
definitely want to make sure you do those things. And then, of course, in the book, it tells you steps on how to set up your business. How far you want to take this. That information is there. Your capability statement, I even shared with inside of the program our capability statement and what we use. And so, it's not, you don't need certifications. And it's kind of crazy because at the time, and I spent quite a bit of money too. Let me say that. I spent a lot of money on certifications. The people who did my certifications are amazing. I would, if I had to do it all over again, I would have them do it again. Now, my situation was a little bit different because in the process of me getting these certifications, I had some things going on that I had to restructure everything, in the business. And so it took a little bit longer for some of my certifications to come through. But normally you can get those certifications anywhere from sometimes to 60 to 90 days, just depending on how it makes sure that you have things set up properly. You don't
Uh-huh.
need certifications. Now, they have been, some people say, yeah, you want to go ahead and get those, but it doesn't hold you up from bidding,
Okay.
if that makes sense. It's something you
Yeah.
can get down the line, but you don't need certifications. Um,
Great.
yeah, so and if you see something in the contract says they want you to be a set aside of a WSOB, SVZSOB, 8A, Indian owned HUD, all these things, then of course they want that primarily. They want that. Doesn't mean you can't bid on it, right? Because just think, if they're asking for that, and then that person or no one under that set aside bids on it, then and you've done so, then there you go, right? So you never know.
Yeah.
You have to be in it to win it. That's what I tell people. Like, I
Right.
am a true believer in I need to be in the game, and I don't care what I'm doing. Like, if I'm not in it, I can't win it. So, so that's how I look at it. And Silas, I'm gonna stop for a second and thank you, Silas, for joining us today too.
Yeah, I'm really excited to go deeper into government contracts because I'm a person that does a lot of government contracting myself, and it's a very powerful thing. And I'm really excited to kind of just dive deeper into this school, as far as information on how contracts, work, how you acquire them, knowing the ins and outs of, which kind of contract to go after. You start looking at like based on what product or service you offer, you start to understand like what contracts are, good benefits and there's different approaches. So I'm really excited for this.
Yeah. And it's so crazy too, Diane. I tell you, one of the other things too, when we first started doing this, we were going after everything. When I tell you, we were going after stuff, it was like that didn't make any sense, Tara. But we did because we didn't know, right? So you don't know
Yeah.
what you don't know, as we always say. But as we learned and the experience and all of that, and then Silas, it's so funny because when he had graduated college, he was like, I can't believe that nothing in college was talked about government contracts. Like he said, I never
Yeah, that's
knew. Mhm.
yeah, that's the thing about it is like, government contract is one of those things that's very hidden. Like for example, I graduated in 2022, in the year 2022, so pretty recent, 3 years removed now, but it's interesting that throughout the whole time I was a business major, so I was in there with professors that, worked in Silicon Valley and things like that, and they never mentioned government contracts at all. Like it never, I mean, the closest thing to contracts was, the defense contracting. Everyone kind of knows about that because that's, the biggest thing, but outside of that, you never knew that you could even sell to the government unless you were selling weapons.
Yeah, and that's a misconception because a lot of people think that you have to be a big business or you have to be into certain type of industries in order to sell to the government. But the government buys everything. One of our contracts, we sold Samsung phones. Now, we do medical equipment and services, right? And consultations has nothing to do with that. But we were able to sell the Department of Defense Samsung phones. And so you'll learn that as you go and as you get into it, you'll kind of learn like what your niche is, what's a benefit, what's not, what you want to really waste your time on, what you don't really want to waste your time on. And that only you only learn those things by doing it on hands on. And that's what I believe. Like you can't I can tell you all these things, but until you actually experience it yourself and do it, then
Yeah.
you start understanding it. And so yeah, and Silas, can you share what your first contract was when you went after it?
Yeah, so my very first contract was it was a big one. It was a conversion contract. It was close to $1 million, 900,000. It was a really big contract. It took me a while though to get it because in the beginning they put it out. It was like a source of salt, which we'll get deeper into that in the school about, what a source of salt is. But essentially, just on the surface, it's basically where the government, they basically do market research on what vendors are out there that can do the job, right? And then if you send, let's say, a just a rough estimate, a rough estimate of, you show interest that you can do the contract, what they'll do is they'll put it on hold for a while and they'll try to see like, okay, we're going to have to spend like around this X number to get what we want, right? Based on what kind of quotes come back with the vendors. So it's not an official contract, it's like a market research. And then what they do is that, let's say like during this contract, my first one, I waited almost 4 to 5 months before they actually made it like an actual contract. But what I did throughout the whole time was I stayed in contact with the contracting officer, just following up with him. And then what I did was I made sure to make a good connection with the actual vendor who was doing the installation part for me. So with the conversion contract is essentially you have like almost like ADA accessibility. So you take the let's say a transit van that's 15 passengers and you gut it and then you turn into like basically a wheelchair accessible van that's like powered like electronic. So what I did was, and this is my first contract. So what I did was, with the knowledge I had, I knew that I had to contact a vendor that can actually do the work for me. So what I did was I just made like, I think I made about 4 or 5 phone calls in that local area where the contract had to be done at. And then I landed on a really good company. I made a good connection with the sales rep there. And the interesting thing about government contracts is that I would say when you're doing the middleman approach, because this is what I was doing in the first contract, I was pretty much doing the middleman, where essentially I'm responsible for the payment and acquiring the product, like the product itself. But when it comes to the installation, I'm relying on a subcontractor, which is the vendor who does the installation. So that's essentially what that company was the subcontract doing the installation and the logistics for me. And then I was responsible of actually acquiring the lifts that they would convert to the vans. So I made that good connection with him, and then he gave me pricing and everything, and I was able to get it to the government. And then, like I said, 4 or 5 months passed. But during that time, I was just keeping a real tight connection with that vendor who was doing the subcontractor. Because one thing to know is when you're in the middleman, like sometimes when you reach out to some companies, they would kind of just look at you as a one-off, right? And so I knew that that was something that I kind of did a lot of research on. So it's like when you're dealing with a subcontractor or a larger company who's doing some of the logistics for you, you really want to make sure you're not coming off at just you're just here just to help you win a contract and then you're gone, right? So I wanted to build an actual relationship with them. And once I did that, when it was actually time for us to do the actual submission of the quote and the actual contract, it was a lot smoother, and then fortunately I was able to win.
And it's a lot of work. Let me say that.
Yeah,
Not
it's a
to
lot.
scare
Yeah.
nobody, but I don't want people to think like, oh, they are just doing all the work. No, it is a process. You do, and then once you do one, once you follow that, because technically that was what you consider a product and service contract.
Product service contract.
Right. And so, but it is work that goes into it. So when you think about, oh, I'm just going to send this work off to somebody else and they do it, no, it doesn't work like that because we were involved every step of the way. You had to be involved and we were involved anyway. Because for us, it's just like what we do anyway. We have clients, we have families, they need product, they need certain type of service. And we get it for them. We do an assessment, we do all that. So, like for instance, with the government, they'll send you the scope of work telling you what they want and you have to give them exactly what they want, not what you think they want, not what somebody else may think they want. You have to follow the roadmap. They'll tell you exactly specifically what they want and you give them what they want. And the same thing applies to what we do in every day. We have clients, they need a particular item, a product, or some type of service, and we listen to what they want, analyze the situation. Well, that's a little bit different because we analyze the situation. Sometimes we have to tell them what they really need versus what they want, right? But my point to that is you're still solving a problem for someone. You're still getting a solution to something that is needed for someone that now is the government, right? And let me say this, it could be the state, it could be federal, it could be local municipalities. I know people who don't even do federal contracts. They only do either state contracts, and some people just only deal with their local municipalities. This is anywhere. I don't care where you are in the United States. You can do this. You have any questions, Diane?
No, I'm listening and I'm fascinated by it. I'm trying to coordinate it or
Mhm.
correlate it with what I do now. And I did case management and I've been a nurse liaison where and I've done sales and marketing.
Mhm.
So I know that you have to. I love Silas's saying, you have to maintain those relationships, and networking is so important to this type of thing. And knowing the right people and staying on top of them and making sure that you feel like you have an interest in it is really important. So I get all that and I like it. Uh, I'm not afraid of hard work, and it's already something I do. It's just good customer service.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's just pretty much get it. You know what I'd say? It's like we're here in the United States and we're just helping out. right? We're just helping people with, of course, it's taxpayers' money. So I always tell
Yeah,
people that too. When you talk about taxpayers' money, it is lowest price acceptable. Now, of course, sometimes lowest price doesn't always mean that you will win because you need to be responsible for to it. Also, they want to make sure that you are responsible lowest price as well. So you want to make sure that whoever you deal with, if you're doing the work yourself, by all means, you whatever, you want to do good work, right? So that you
yeah,
don't get on this naughty list, on this list that they have. But if you want, and you also want to make sure whoever you sub work out to, that you deal with companies that are legitimate, that will do the work, look at their reviews, and all those things. Talk to them. There's questions that part of the program that we'll talk about that, where we have you, ask certain questions. We do that right now, period, with suppliers. So we don't deal with certain suppliers if we can't pick up the phone and talk to the manufacturer or their rep, then we don't deal with them. Why? Because we want to make sure that whatever is needed, if there's a problem, we can handle that problem and solve it for our client. So
yeah.
that being a patient's family, that being a government agency, whomever, we need to be able to do that. And so we follow these processes across the board when it comes to that. And yeah, but yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for many people out there. I know a lot of people think of government and they like, oh my God, it's a lot of red tape and all that stuff, but it's not scary at all. It's not, it's really actually when you see that first award, you're like, oh my God. You're like really excited because you're like, man, and then you're giving back, you're solving, you're doing something for the states, right? And you're giving back and whatever it is they need to provide that product or service. And there's all kind of stuff out there that people do. I mean, stuff that people wouldn't even believe. Chaplain work, you talk about what you do, Diane. There's, I mean, consulting, it all kind of stuff. Like, I mean, it's just endless of what it is that you do, what they need, and what we can solve the problem and the solution of what the government needs. And so I'm excited that you're excited, Diane.
I'm very excited. I'm very curious to learn,
Mhm.
and I also have the ability to do the work on a regular basis so that I can pick out the right contracts and stuff. It's going to be fascinating and interesting, and um, I'll, as you say, the more you do it, the more you get experience at it, and the more you feel comfortable doing it. The first one's always going to be, I'm going to be nervous, but that's with anything new with me.
Anything for all of us. It's
Yeah.
new, right? So, we've sat in some rooms, be like, oh my God, how's this gonna go? But it's not even what you think. I tell people you just make those communications, you learn it, and that's why we created the program. And so the program is really simple and easy as well. It's pretty much, you read through it, you follow the steps, and of course we talk about it and we help you with it. If you find one that you need, we go over all kind of things dealing with funding. How do you, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, wait a minute. If I saw a contract and I can't, and they want, because may have to pay money up front. You may call a company, a supplier, and you're like, well, if you don't have a net 45 or net 30, then how are you going to get the products if you don't have the money, right? We talk about those type of things. We go over all of that. We talk about a proposal. How do you write a proposal? All these different things. So there's a lot in the program that's really, really helpful to people. And one of the things why I was really, really wanting to make sure that we did this, and I wanted to, was because there's a lot of companies, and of course everybody has their own thing that they do what they do, but a lot of people is just complaining that they can't afford it, right? Because a lot of times these programs cost so much money that people just don't have it, to do it, like, right? And so that's why we started the program. It's literally $24.99 per month. And that's what it is. And I did that because I just feel like when people are trying to pivot, grow, scale, whatever it is they need to do, or just need a hand up, then it should be something that they can, they can do. It's almost like giving back to the community, if that makes sense. So,
It did for me. It made it very affordable.
yeah, yeah, and that's the goal too, because it's all about how do we, help people grow? And we're still learning too. Like we don't know everything, so don't think we don't. 'Cause so basically, we're all learning together, right?
Yes.
We just have won multiple contracts, and we're in the process of actually submitting one today and tomorrow. So a couple of them we have in the pipeline right now. But it's just like I tell people, you learn something new every single day, even in a healthcare spot, right? So even in my regular industry, I mean, every day I learn something new every single day, to help people or figure something out. So you're never one of these people that you're going to be sitting around here thinking like, oh, okay, we know everything, because we don't. So let me tell you that right now. So we're learning together. So, but we do know enough to get you started, get you going, to get you some wins and all those things. So, Silas, did you have anything else that you wanted to share today?
I would say the last thing is the government contracting sphere is huge, right? There's millions of contracts out every single day. So um literally, even if everyone bidded a contract, there's still tons of extra contracts out there. So what I love about it is that basically government contracting is the sky is the limit because there is no saturation. Of course, there are certain pockets that may be saturated, right? But that's like in any other industry. But overall, there's millions of contracts. There's so many contracts out there to the point where they just take some of them off because no one responded.
Yeah.
So that just go to show you how big the opportunity is in this, and whatever product or service you offer, or whatever lane or type of way you want to do it, you can pretty much achieve that in government contracting because it's so huge.
It is. It is. And then just so I'll tell you this too, Diane, that some of the bids, like literally the one we bid it on was about 3 weeks ago, Silas. It was only
Yeah,
us
three
and
weeks ago.
another company. Two.
Just
Two
two.
people showed up. Two.
Wow.
So think
Yeah.
about
Wow.
that. Of all in this huge United States, only two showed up. And so
And
that
I
means
would also add, and
Mhm.
I'll also add too that, for example, like if depending on what state you're in, I would say state contracts is a great way to get a easier win. I won't say not easy, but easier. So for example, if this is if you're just getting started, I would say, yeah, definitely starting off with like a state contract is really good because that can get your feet wet. And then once you get enough wins and you get enough like financials where you can then graduate to the federal contracts. Because one thing I do see that federal contracts are a little bit they do require a little bit more effort on federal contracts, and there's a little bit more competition. But like if you do state contracts, like no one really even looks at state contracts half the time. And so that's a good way of how you can rack up some wins is through
Yeah.
state contracts.
In your counties. Don't forget about the counties. And sometimes I know for here in California, we have some they may be listed on the state, but they may be buying for the county. It's kind of weird how that works. But we see it. And so yeah, don't forget about your counties,
Yeah,
your
counties.
cities. You even have the local, like they buy everything like pencils, paper, um, notepads. They buy all this stuff and
They
they
buy
want
everything.
people to get it. So if you're in your state, your county, local, whatever, go on there and look, doing business with your state, doing business with your county, doing business with your city, doing business with whomever, with a part of your county, state, what have you. And mind you, there's crossover. You don't have, it's called reciprocity, I think it is.
Reciprocity.
Yes, there it is. Diane,
I know
reciprocity.
that word because I needed to use reciprocity when I reapplied for
There you
nursing
go.
licenses in other states.
Reciprocity. Reciprocity is there for government contracting, meaning that you can be in the state and you have your SBE, DBE, and all those things that sometimes the state will do allow, want so they can get that extra 5% or what have you. Then you can do that, and you don't have to take and provide all of the information that you provided initially if you go to another state. And I know a lot of things have
Awesome.
changed, so yeah, check that out too, because a
Yeah.
lot of things have, some there's been some changes, but ultimately and you have your local too. It's free. It's a free service that you literally can reach out to your state, county representatives and ask for help through SBA. I
I'm
think,
already doing that here in South Carolina.
see?
They have the South Carolina Apex,
Yes.
and I've signed up. I have a course. I was supposed to have it this Wednesday, but I had a client. I have to do a podcast when they're doing it, so I'm doing it July 3rd. But they're going to assign me a rep and everything.
Exactly. See? You just got to follow the steps. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, I felt really comfortable about that. I thought, well, that's nice. They're going to have someone that I can call and cry to when I don't understand what I'm doing wrong.
Well, you know what's good is that also too, once you get set up and decipher which one of your next codes, your PSC codes and things like that you want to go with, they also would do what's called a my match because I get them every day. They send you out things that match what you want to do or what you can do, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'll get those. Now, of course, some of them you still want to go in and look at it on yourself, like sam.gov or your state sites
yeah.
and things like that. But ultimately, you can have them do that, and they'll pull things, and you'll get them every day that you can look at and see, like, hey, let me just bid on this and stuff like that. So and then of course, in the program we talk about also within your state, there's other layers of portals and agencies underneath there that you want to also register so that when they're looking for the buyer is looking for a particular next code or product, then your company will come up under there. So that's another way because, like, I know for the state, if you look on the ECAP per cur, it's I think about 300 to 400 average solicitations that's there, but they do other solicitations that they have underneath other portals that you wouldn't see. Right. So knowing to how to register on those and getting your name on those, and then also making sure you reach out to some of those buyers to say, hey, I'm over here. Here's my capability statement. If you guys get anything you need, can you reach out to me? And there's a small business, ombudsman, all these different things that Ostabu. I'm thinking about ombudsman. I'm thinking about
Yeah.
caregiving. Yeah. So I mean the Ostabu. Okay, so that's different. But yeah, but we'll be talking about more and having these conversations. We just wanted to jump on here today and invite everybody to the school because what we wanted to do was make things a little bit easier for people to be able to access things. Because right now we have the podcast, we have the app, and we have our websites and things, and it's just so it's just kind of hard for people to track. It's hard for us to track it too. So our team, we just like, okay, you know what? Let's put everything under school, and then that way, if people's on school, we can go live on these things. They can also see everything is under one hub. And that's why we did it. And you don't have to be just a caregiver, you guys out there. It could be anyone, and there's no age limit. I think what it's 18, probably 18 and over 18. But you can be young, you can be older, what have you. You may be looking to start a new business. You may be looking to add something on to what you're doing already, and you're thinking like, oh, or you have a business and you're thinking like, oh my God, I don't know, it may be slow right now for you, and you're thinking like, am I gonna have to close my doors? You just need to look at government contracts because you will be surprised how you can add that on to your business, your current business, right? And so we learned the hard way that you have to be diversified in your business. You literally do across the board. Like, so when you're doing things in business, there in those slow times you're going to have other things going on as well, and government contracting has helped a lot of businesses. You would be surprised of the companies that do government contracts, that have government contracts right now, got started and they are who they are behind government contracts. Silas, do you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, I could talk about that. Yeah, like all your major companies, your major Fortune 500 companies like, Tesla, Amazon, Target, Walmart, all these massive companies, they got to where they are primarily because of government contracts. I know for Amazon, Amazon was doing really well in the early 2000s, but what really helped them get to the net, like to the level they are now, what helped them was they won like a multi-hundred-million-dollar contract, and that after that, it's been the rest is history. So like all the major companies at the highest level, they all do government contracts. Like, we even see that they even when you look at the way they move, in politics and things like that, they understand that for them, business wise, they do what they do to get in, and they can get those contracts, right? And so that's the major thing on why they are who they are. So they primarily didn't get to where they are just from consumer. They got to where they are because of doing business with the government. And then, of course, being diversified, like for example, Amazon's a great example. They have really done an excellent job diversifying themselves to pretty much be in every aspect of the customer experience, from just buying commodities online to entertainment, music, movies. You just see them everywhere, right? And so that goes back to like, being diversified. So like in times where maybe people are not buying as much from their platform, they can rely on entertainment, right? And then if entertainment is kind of slowing down, then they can rely on something else. And then now we see that AI is a huge thing right now. So a lot of the major companies are building infrastructures around AI to use AI as an advantage to continue to diversify even more. So I would say the companies that last the longest are companies that for sure has done an excellent job of doing business with the government and also diversifying. I also will add too that, in this school, we'll definitely tell you guys that government contracting is excellent, but based on what you're doing, you definitely want to have some income coming in from somewhere else in the beginning for sure, because government contract, as great as it is, when you bid a contract, unless the government just say, here you go, here's the contract, it's 50-50 no matter what. Like no matter how much research you do, because it's lowest price acceptable, there's always that off chance that a company that you didn't even think of just comes out of nowhere and submits a lower number, and it could be just 1 cent or $1, one number under your number, and then they win, right? Like actually, I just experienced that. We did a contract last year, and I'm not sure how they did it. They pulled it off, but they came in out of nowhere and undercutted everybody, right? And they won, right? And so of course then you don't win the contract. So definitely making sure that you have income coming in from multiple other sources as you keep going is very helpful. So that way when you do bid a contract, you're not bidding a contract out of desperation. You're bidding it out of sheer like, okay, you know what? This is a great add-on, but if I don't win this particular contract, the world is not over. That's something that I learned is, it's like when I would say like last year we took a quick pause on it because we were focused on the commercial side because we realized, okay, yeah, government contract is excellent, but like I said, the wins and losses, it's 50-50 every time, right? And so you want to make sure you have that diversification of income coming in from other sources so that when you're bidding from a place of uh comfort and more in a mindset of, okay, this is a great add-on versus desperation. Like if I lose, I have to win this contract or all is lost, right? If you're bidding it from that perspective, that's where government contracting becomes can be discouraging and very difficult. But if you understand, like, I have other sources coming in and this is a great add-on, then that's where government contract becomes the most beneficial. Because always when you're really not counting on it is when it really takes off. And I think that's with anything.
Yeah. Did you have anything to say on that, Diane?
No, I appreciate that information, and anytime you start a business, you should have that philosophy anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you
I I
should.
I agree.
Yeah, you
Uh,
really should. Yeah. So, and it's not to say that you can't eventually make it a primary thing. I have some college associates right now that they worked for years doing other things, and they did a great job over the years with doing this on the side. And now financially, they're in a place where they're like, we're going all in. And so for some people that works, and it just depends on what you do, right? So for what we do, we love what we do, so we wouldn't stop doing what we're doing to do a government contract full time. It's just
right.
we're into patient advocacy work. We're helping people. That's a whole different lane, right? But so it's not for us to stop, but it is definitely part of our. It's 50% of our what we do. So you know what I'm saying? Like so. It is so it's one of those things what Silas said is you definitely want to make sure you have other things on board. And of course, maybe you get to a
At
point
least in
where
the
you don't
beginning.
in the beginning. Yeah, I'll say in
Yeah,
the
in the
beginning.
Yeah.
beginning.
So, yeah. Yeah. So All right, you guys. Well, if there is nothing else, we're going to wrap up. You guys, this is the Caregiver and Government Contracts Hub on School. And so if you're out there and you want to join, these calls are free. We get on here. If you have some questions about something, Diane, did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask us before we get off? Because we do these once a week, but of course you get in the community, which is why the school community is so awesome too, is because you can ask questions inside there and we can, talk about it, answer it, and all that kind of stuff throughout the week until we get on our calls. Yeah.
I'm just getting started, still learning, and I'm moving forward, getting everything ready. So
Okay.
I'm looking forward to my um, Apex call
Yes.
and learning more about that and getting a rep. So that'll be my big next step.
Yes, and of course, you have the program there. And of course, if you have any
Yeah,
questions, you know how to reach me. So you just let me know and all that good stuff, and then we're going to answer. And if we
yeah,
don't have an answer, we get the answers. That's what we do at CFS Solutions. So,
absolutely, and I appreciate that.
okay, all right, you guys heard it here on the school on CFS Medical Supplies and Equipment, CFS Solutions, and we have the Caregiver and Government Hub school system that you guys can go on there and join the community. It's free. And so welcome to it. And we'll see you guys on the next call.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you. Have a good one.